Welcome to Manifested Publishers.
Welcome, learners. My name is Stephen Kariungi, and today we are going to discuss a topic in chemistry form 2, and this topic is structure and bonding. And before we start, it is important to ask ourselves, what are the examiner's requirements as far as this topic is concerned? And basically, what we are asking ourselves is, what are the objectives of this particular chapter? So we'll start by going through the objectives of the topic, structure and bonding. And the first thing that we would want to ask ourselves is that we need to understand the importance of valence electrons in bonding. Valence electrons are the outermost electrons. And the outermost electrons, also known as the valence electrons, they are very, very important during bonding because they are the ones that are involved in the process. So in this case, we'll be able to explain the importance of valence electrons in bonding. After that, I will be able to explain the three types of bonds, explain ionic, covalent, and metallic bonding. So those are the three types, or the three main types of bonds that we have. Then we'll be able to use diagrammatic illustration, to show ionic, covalent, we have dative, hydrogen, and metallic bonding. So you should be able to use a diagrammatic illustration to illustrate, for instance, ionic bonding, hydrogen bonding, metallic bonding, and the others. Also, it will be important to be able to predict the type of bonding given the physical properties. So to be able to predict the type of bonding when you are given the physical properties. So predict the type of bonding given the physical properties of a compound. Also, as another objective, we should be able to explain the bond type across period 3. So we'll be able to explain the bond type across period 3. The various elements we have in period 3, how do they bond, or how are their bonding types? Then we should also be able to select materials for use based on bonding and structure. So you should be able to select which materials to use for what purpose based on the type of bonding that is present. And lastly, number 7, we should be able to predict the physical properties of a compound given the type of bond. So those are the objectives of this particular chapter that every learner is expected to understand as a guide to know whether you are well versed or you are conversant with this particular topic. So the first objective we said is to be able to explain the importance of valence electrons in bonding, and we have said that valence electrons are the outermost electrons. Number 2, to be able to explain the ionic, covalent, and metallic bonding, how the different types of bonds are formed. Number 3, to be able to use diagrammatic illustration to show ionic, covalent. There are other bonds such as dative bond, hydrogen bonding, and metallic bonding. And number 4, to predict the type of bonding given the physical properties of a compound. Number 5, we shall be able to explain the bond type across period 3. How do the bonds change as you go across period 3? And number 6, we should be able also to seek to understand how we select materials for use based on bonding and structure. So for example, why is it that aircraft bodies are usually made of aluminum? So what are the properties that are in that aluminum that make it suitable for use in the making of aircraft bodies? So that is as far as that objective is concerned. And then lastly, to be able to predict the physical properties of a compound given the bonding type. If we know, for example, a particular compound has covalent bonding, what kind of physical properties do we expect to have in that kind of compound? So that is as far as the objectives are concerned. So we are going to get into the introduction to structure and bonding. And the first thing that we shall start by explaining, is that a bond is a force of attraction. A bond is a force of attraction that exists between atoms. The force of attraction that exists between atoms that bring the atoms together. They can be 2 atoms or they can be more than 2 atoms. So when those atoms come together, we can say that they have a bond between them. So basically we can explain something here. That when there is a force of attraction between 2 or more atoms, we say that there is a chemical bond. There is a chemical bond between them. Now, the other thing is that when those atoms are bonded together repeatedly, they form a certain pattern that repeats itself. And that pattern that repeats itself is what we refer to as the structure. So you can say that when atoms are bonded together repeatedly, to form a regular pattern. We call that a structure. We call that a structure. So basically, the introduction is to understand what is a bond and then what is a structure. So a bond is a force of attraction that brings together two or more atoms. We'll find out why the atoms have to come together. Then when atoms are bonded together repeatedly in a regular pattern, we refer to that as a structure. Now, we have also said that bonding involves the use of outermost electrons. Involves the use of outermost electrons, also called valence electrons. So the outermost electrons are also called valence electrons, and they are the ones that are involved in bonding. Now, so we have some points to consider during bonding. Some points to consider during bonding. One thing is that noble gases have a stable electron arrangement. Noble gases have a stable electron arrangement, i.e., for example, helium has a duplet, while neon and argon have a stable octet. A duplet is whereby, for example, we have helium. It has 2 electrons and it is stable. So this is what we call a duplet. In the case of neon and argon, so neon has 2, 8. So the outermost electrons are 8. Argon also, the outermost electrons are 8, 8. So they are also stable. And this is what we now call an octet. So both a duplet and an octet are stable electron arrangement. So noble gases have a stable electron arrangement, and therefore we can say that noble gases do not form bonds, or they do not they do not form bonds. Another point to note, besides the fact that noble gases are stable and therefore they do not form bonds because they either have a stable duplet or a stable octet, is that other atoms bond by gaining, others losing, or sharing the valence electrons. So we are saying that other atoms that are not stable or that are not noble gases that bond or that need to bond, they either do so either by gaining electrons, losing electrons, or sharing the valence electrons. And another point to note is that unlike charges, attract while like charges repel. And this explains why positive charges will be attracted by negative charges. Positive charges will be attracted by negative charges. So that shows that unlike charges attract, while like charges repel. So at this point, we can have an assignment. So the first question, what is A, a chemical bond, as we have explained, B, a structure. Number 2, explain why noble gases do not form bonds or do not form chemical bonds. And lastly, number 3, what are valence electrons? So we are going to continue from there during the next lesson. Goodbye.